Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into something I think we can all relate to. That feeling of not being good enough,
Yeah.
even when things are going well,
Mhm.
We've got 3 articles by author and coach Paul Donkers to guide us,
Okay.
and they all kind of touch on this idea, battling imposter syndrome,
Right.
ditching old habits, and truly owning your expertise.
Mhm.
Have you ever caught yourself feeling like a total fraud, even when you're succeeding? Like any minute now,
All right.
everyone's going to figure out you have no idea what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's that classic fake it till you make it fear, but amplified.
Yeah, and Donkers jumps right into this in one article, sharing a
Wow.
story about how he, a seasoned business consultant,
Mhm.
felt totally inadequate when contacted by a surgeon's wife for help with their practice.
Oh, wow.
I mean, here's a guy who helps businesses for a living, and even he gets hit with imposter syndrome.
Right.
It makes you wonder why this feeling is so common, even for accomplished people.
What's fascinating is that it often stems from a disconnect
Yeah.
between our internal self-perception and external achievements.
Mm-hmm.
We hit milestones, yet struggle to internalize that success.
Right.
Societal pressures,
Yeah.
that constant need to prove ourselves, even perfectionism,
Yeah.
they all contribute to this feeling of being a phony.
Donkers offers 5 tips for managing imposter syndrome.
Okay.
And one that really struck me was about actively challenging those negative thoughts.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just spiral into, I'm not good enough.
Right.
But what if we stopped and actually examined the evidence?
Exactly. Instead of just accepting those thoughts as truth,
Yeah.
we can treat them like hypotheses to be tested.
Oh, I like that.
Let's say you think, I only got this promotion because someone else quit. Okay, let's gather data.
Mm.
What were your contributions?
Right.
Your performance reviews? Did you go above and beyond?
Yeah.
Often, the evidence reveals a different story, a story of hard work and earned success.
That's a really helpful way to reframe it.
Mm-hmm.
Donkers also stresses seeking support.
Oh.
It's so easy to isolate ourselves when we feel like imposters,
Right.
but talking to mentors or trusted peers
Yeah.
can provide an outside perspective and remind us of our strengths.
Absolutely. It's like having a sounding board to reality check those negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And it highlights the importance of community in combating imposter syndrome.
Right.
We're not meant to go through this alone.
So we've talked about recognizing imposter syndrome and challenging those thoughts.
Right.
But Donkers also points out something he calls the paradox of success.
Okay.
Sometimes the habits that got us to a certain point can actually become roadblocks later on.
Interesting.
We succeed in spite of them, not because of them.
I see.
He actually shares a pretty personal story about this.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he talks about how his tendency to improvise worked well in the early days of his startups.
Okay.
He was scrappy, adaptable, and it got things done. But as his companies grew,
Yeah.
that same improvisation started creating chaos and uncertainty for his team.
Wow, I can see how that would happen.
What might have seemed like a strength in one context becomes a weakness in another.
Yeah,
Did Donkers talk about how he dealt with that?
he did. He realized he needed to shift from constantly reacting to proactively planning,
Okay.
which wasn't easy because that improvisation was so ingrained in his approach.
Right.
But he recognized it was holding him back from scaling his businesses effectively.
Yeah.
He had to learn to become more structured and organized,
Mhm.
which wasn't his natural inclination.
That takes a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah.
To recognize that a habit that served you well for so long is now the thing that's limiting you.
It really does.
It makes me think about my own habits. Have you ever had a habit that was both helpful and holding you back?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's something we all grapple with, I think.
Right.
Sometimes those go-to strategies that helped us achieve initial success
Yeah.
need to evolve as we do.
Mm.
And that can be uncomfortable
Right.
because it requires us to step outside our comfort zones and try new things.
So we've covered feeling like an imposter even when you're successful
Yeah.
and recognizing how old habits can become roadblocks.
Right.
But Donkers also delves into the value of expertise itself,
Okay.
which seems particularly relevant after talking about habits we need to break. It's like, how do we know which habits are actually valuable expertise?
That's a great point. And it ties directly into what Donkers discusses in his article on expertise.
Okay.
He tells this cautionary tale of a company, let's call them XYZ,
Okay.
that tried to cut corners on a major IT project.
Oh, I can already see where this is going.
It's a classic case of penny wise and pound foolish.
Uh-huh.
The project ended up being 2 years late and way over budget.
Oof.
Donkers uses this story to highlight the importance of investing in deep expertise,
Right.
especially for critical projects.
Yeah.
He even cites research showing that 18% of IT projects experience cost overruns of more than 50%, with
Wow.
the average overrun a whopping 447%.
Yikes. That's a pretty compelling argument for valuing expertise. But how do we apply this to ourselves as we gain experience?
Hmm.
It's easy to downplay our own skills and knowledge,
Right.
especially with that imposter syndrome lurking in the back of our minds.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's where Donker's advice for experienced individuals comes in.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of knowing your worth.
Mm-hmm.
Don't undervalue your years of experience and the skills you've honed.
Right.
This means staying updated on your field,
Yeah.
being able to articulate the value you bring,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that what seems obvious to you might be incredibly valuable to others.
That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get caught up in thinking, oh, anyone could do that.
Right.
When in reality, we've accumulated a wealth of knowledge that others might desperately need.
Exactly. And it circles back to that idea of managing imposter syndrome.
Right.
If we're constantly downplaying our expertise,
Yeah.
we're not only doing ourselves a disservice, but also potentially missing opportunities to help others.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here in part one.
Yeah.
From recognizing and challenging imposter syndrome
Mm-hmm.
to understanding how old habits can hold us back
Right.
and recognizing the value of our own expertise.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
But when we come back, we'll dive deeper into some of Donker's more specific advice for breaking free from those limiting habits and truly owning our expertise.
I'll go back.
So as we were talking about these old habits before the break,
Yeah.
I was thinking about how Donker's actually gives us some really practical advice for
Right.
breaking free from these counterproductive habits.
He does.
One that I found particularly insightful was
Yeah.
his emphasis on understanding the why behind the change.
Okay.
He argues that simply forcing ourselves to do something differently
Mm-hmm.
isn't enough.
Yeah.
We need to connect with a deeper reason for wanting to change.
Right.
What's the bigger goal we're trying to achieve?
Uh-huh.
How will breaking this habit help us get there?
It's like with any goal, right? If you
Yeah.
don't have a strong why, it's easy to lose motivation when things get tough.
And Donker suggests we get really specific with that why.
Okay.
Instead of just saying, I want to be more organized,
Yeah.
we might say, I want to be more organized so I can free up mental space to focus on strategic initiatives instead of constantly putting out fires.
Right. So that deeper purpose becomes the driving force.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He also talks about the importance of replacing the old habit with a new one. It's not enough to just stop doing something.
Right.
We need to fill that void
Yeah.
with a more positive behavior.
Right. It's about creating new neural pathways.
Okay.
Let's say you're trying to break the habit of checking your email first thing in the morning. Instead, you might replace that with a 5-minute meditation or journaling practice.
Yeah.
Over time, that new habit becomes the automatic response.
He also mentions the value of having an accountability partner or a coach.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I've definitely found that having someone to check in with really helps me stay on track with my goals.
It makes such a difference, doesn't it?
It really does.
Knowing that someone is expecting you to follow through can be a powerful motivator.
Right.
And a good coach
Yeah.
can provide guidance, support,
Mm-hmm.
and help you troubleshoot challenges along the way.
Which brings us back to that concept of expertise, right?
Yeah.
We were talking before about how it's easy to undervalue our own knowledge and experience.
Right.
But Donkers argues that recognizing and leveraging our expertise is essential, not just for our own success, but also for the success of our organizations.
He makes a compelling case for it.
He does.
He points out that true expertise isn't just about having information.
Right.
It's about being able to apply that knowledge
Mm.
effectively in real-world situations.
Mhm.
It's about pattern recognition,
Yeah.
problem-solving, and decision-making
Right.
based on years of accumulated experience.
And he stresses the importance of being able to articulate that expertise.
Yeah.
To communicate the value we bring.
Mhm.
In a way that resonates with others.
Right.
He actually gives some really tactical advice
Okay.
on how to do this.
Okay.
One tip that resonated with me
Mm-hmm.
was his suggestion to connect our expertise
Yeah.
to tangible business outcomes,
Okay.
whether it's increasing revenue,
Right.
reducing costs, or improving efficiency.
Huh.
We need to show how our knowledge
Wow.
directly contributes to the bottom line.
That makes so much sense.
It does.
It's not enough to just say, I'm good at this.
Right.
We need to be able to show how our expertise translates into results.
He also talks about the importance of staying updated in our field,
Oh, absolutely.
which can feel like a daunting task
Yeah.
with the constant influx of new information.
Right, the learning never stops.
It doesn't.
But Donkers encourages us to view it as an opportunity for growth rather than a burden.
Okay.
He suggests carving out dedicated time for professional development, attending industry events,
Yeah.
and engaging with thought leaders in our field.
I love that he emphasizes the importance of both continuous learning and recognizing the value of our existing expertise. It's about finding that balance between staying humble and acknowledging our strengths.
It's a dance, isn't it?
It is.
We want to avoid arrogance,
Right.
but also not fall into the trap of constantly feeling like we need to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
He even uses the phrase, knowing your worth without arrogance, which I think beautifully captures that balance.
So, listeners, take a second and think, where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yeah, good question.
Do you tend to underplay your expertise? Or do you sometimes veer into overconfidence?
Yeah.
It's something worth reflecting on.
Absolutely. And as we're wrapping up this section on expertise,
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that it's not a destination.
Right.
It's a journey of continuous learning, growth, and refinement. And it's a journey we're all on together.
That's such a great point. And as we move into our final segment,
Okay.
I want to shift gears slightly and talk about how we can leverage all of these insights.
Okay.
Managing imposter syndrome, breaking free from old habits, and embracing our expertise
Yeah.
to actually create positive change, not just for ourselves, but also for the world around us.
I love that framing because ultimately, what's the point of all this self-development
Right.
if it doesn't translate into meaningful action?
Yeah,
Donkers actually touches on this in his articles,
he does.
and it's a theme I'm eager to explore further.
Me too. Let's dive in. So we've talked about managing that inner critic,
Right?
breaking free from old habits,
Yeah.
and recognizing the value of our hard-earned expertise. But here's the big question. How do we take all this and actually make a difference?
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in the self-improvement bubble,
Yeah.
but Donkers really emphasizes using our strengths for something bigger than ourselves.
He does. He even cautions against expertise becoming this isolated thing,
Right.
just a line on our resume. Instead, he talks about how true expertise is meant to be shared,
Yeah.
to be used to solve problems,
Right.
mentor others, and contribute to something meaningful.
That really resonates with me. It's
Yeah.
like, what's the point of having all this knowledge and experience if
Right.
we're not putting it to good use?
Exactly.
Donkers actually shares a story about a mentee of his
Okay.
who was incredibly talented, but struggled to see her own value.
Oh, wow.
She was constantly second-guessing herself and holding back from pursuing leadership opportunities.
And this is where that idea of managing imposter syndrome
Yeah,
meets the power of expertise.
right.
Donkers encouraged his mentee to not only recognize her skills, but also to use them to help others.
Okay.
She ended up spearheading a mentorship program within her company,
Oh, wow. That's great.
which not only boosted her confidence,
Yeah.
but also had this ripple effect
Right.
throughout the organization.
That's such a powerful example of how sharing our expertise can create a positive impact. It's not just about what we know.
Right.
It's about how we use that knowledge to empower others.
Exactly.
And I think this also ties back to breaking free from those old habits.
Uh-huh.
If our go-to move is to play small and stay in our comfort zone,
Yeah.
we might be missing opportunities to make a real difference.
Absolutely. If we're constantly telling ourselves, I'm not ready, or someone else could do this better,
Right.
we're essentially silencing our own potential.
Yeah.
Donkers challenges us to ask ourselves, what impact do I want to make?
Okay.
And then to identify the habits and thought patterns
Yeah.
that might be holding us back from achieving that vision.
He also talks about the importance of finding alignment between our expertise and our values.
Right.
It's not just about being good at something. It's about using our skills in a way that feels purposeful and authentic.
That's so key.
Yeah.
If our work feels meaningless
Right.
or misaligned with our core values, it's going to be harder to stay motivated and make a sustainable impact.
Right.
Donkers suggests we take some time to reflect
Okay.
on what truly matters to us. What are the causes we care about?
Yeah.
What problems do we want to solve? And then to look for ways to leverage our expertise in service of those goals.
It's about finding that sweet spot where our passion, our skills,
Yeah.
and the needs of the world intersect.
I love that.
And it's about recognizing that we all have something unique to offer, regardless of our job title or level of experience.
He even encourages us to think beyond our traditional work roles.
Okay.
Maybe you're an accountant who's passionate about environmental sustainability.
Right.
Could you volunteer your financial skills to help a local conservation organization? Or maybe you're a software engineer who loves teaching.
Yeah.
Could you mentor young people who are interested in coding?
I love that. It's about expanding our definition of what it means to make a difference.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this grand, sweeping gesture.
Exactly.
It can be about using our skills in small but meaningful ways
Yeah.
within our communities or workplaces, or even just our personal relationships.
Exactly. And I think Donkers would agree that it's often those small acts of service,
Right.
those moments of shared knowledge and support, that ultimately create the biggest ripple effects.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
habit change, and
Yeah.
the power of expertise,
Right.
I want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
Donker's work has really highlighted the importance of not just developing our skills,
Mm-hmm.
but also using them to create positive change in the world.
Yeah.
So my question to you, dear listener, is this. What impact do you want to make?
Good question.
What steps can you take today, even small ones, to leverage your expertise and make a difference?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is.
And remember, you don't have to have all the answers right now.
Right.
The journey of self-discovery and impactful contribution is ongoing.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
With pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking,
Yeah.
and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a difference.